So football to talk about. Hell yeah. First game of the season. Hall of Fame game just happened. I'm, of course, recording some quick thoughts right after it happened. Obviously, you never want to take too much away from this game, being that it is effectively all players who are not going to play. But actually, there was a reasonable amount of players I think are at least worth talking about that played in this game. Just in the background here, I got the box score up there. Overall, I don't care about the overall result, even in the slightest. But the main thing I think you saw in this game was this game was a quarterback difference. I wish I would have recorded something before. I can't believe people were thinking about betting on the Jaguars in this game. You were talking about a quarterback who should not even be in the NFL, and Jake Luton, versus two guys who, while should not be starters, at least can theoretically be backups or have performed well at times, and Jared Stidham and Nick Mullins, or well is an overstatement, but not disastrously. That's the main thing, I think, of all the things to take away in this game. There are two for me. One is that Jake Luton sucks. Get him out of here. If he plays the Jaguars, are screwed. We kind of knew that anyway. Whatever. And the other one is Tyron Johnson. This is the first actual player that I want to talk about. I'm really glad that the broadcast was giving him props, and he's somebody that I missed. I just kind of skipped over when I did the Raiders preview. I think it's because I didn't quite recognize the name right away. Just it's kind of a basic name, but Tyron Johnson's good, man. He was on the Chargers, especially 2 years ago, was where he really showed out. The dude's really fast. He gets open. He's a real deep threat. And while he's the Raiders' sixth receiver or something like that, if that's your sixth receiver who should make this team, then you're doing real good. Tyron Johnson's good. That shit was true, or that shit was for real. And I would be happy about that if I was a Raiders fan. As far as the other side of the ball with this, for the Jaguars, again, don't even take anything away from this game, really. You're talking about a bunch of players who are barely ever going to play in the season if things are going even slightly according to plan. And there's only a few guys that I think are even worthy of talking about. The main one that we should start with is Trayvon Walker. First overall pick played. Not great. We'll see. I'm definitely not going to leap to any sort of conclusion based on the first preseason game. But it's not exactly what you want out of the first overall pick, because the main things that is being praised for is stuff that you are turning to for players who are not that good, right? And it was the broadcast talking about positional versatility and ability to hold the point of attack as a run defender, stuff like that, which that stuff's cool. I'm not going to say it's a negative, but just ask the Raiders how a top 5 defensive end, where that's the first thing you talk about, works out, and they're not going to be real happy. Cleveland Farrell, of course, who I'm referring to there. Trayvon Walker, he did not beat guys the way that I would have hoped for the first overall pick. Again, this is literally the first preseason game. I don't care that much. I'm basically going to reset my judgment for him once we actually start playing real football in the regular season. Just to point out, though, real quick, not great first impressions. Also for the Jags, Arden Key, don't get too excited. He did play well this game, but you would expect that of a multi-year veteran against mostly reserve players. The dude, he can be on an NFL roster. He's a fine, whatever, rotational rusher. He tries hard. He's just not really a plus, and don't get it twisted just because he played well against the Raiders' backups. On the other side of the ball, with the Raiders, I'm going to kind of jump back and forth here because there's not a ton of players I really want to kind of talk about. But the main one is Darius Phillips. I don't want to use this as a two-way street, right? I don't want to be unfair and say for one player it matters how good they play in this game, for others it doesn't. But I'm going to kind of do that anyway. Not actually, but the way that I want to phrase this is if you want somebody to be good, right, you have to start with them performing against lesser competition. Then we'll see how they get to go against good competition. So whereas Trayvon Walker against lesser competition, theoretically, didn't start so great, Darius Phillips, at the very least, was really good. I'm fully on board that he should just straight up start week 1 for this team over Rocky Sin. Darius Phillips is good. He's buried on a really good Bengals secondary for a little bit. He's a really good returner too. But the dude is actually a good corner. He showed that today. He sticks with people. He can make plays. He's a good tackler today too. Darius Phillips is awesome. He should be starting for the Raiders. That's the main thing I want to point out, and it helps at least that he didn't underperform against the good. Now we'll see how he goes as we get into better players, but I'm pretty confident in that one. With the Raiders too, I want to talk about Brandon Parker. I saw a lot of people criticizing him during this game and saying, "Oh, he sucks. He's the worst." That's just not true. He was hurt because right when they were talking about how good he was, he proceeds to immediately give up 2 sacks. Now, is that really what happened if you look at those plays? No. One was a stunt where the guard ended up shoving the defender into him, putting him off balance, which, yeah, that sucks. but that happens to like even the best tackles in the NFL with kind of regularity. That's kind of basically the whole point of stunts. And the other one was Jarrett Stidham trying to duck through a gap that wasn't there going forward. And while Brandon Parker didn't make like a great block on a play by any means, it's another one that like that's really common in the NFL for players to end up in the positions he was. It's just normally quarterbacks don't make a decision to try to duck through a space like that. I'm not worried about Brandon Parker. He did underperform compared to my expectations last year, which I talked about in the Raiders preview. But just because of those two plays in this game, I'm not that worried about it. He still could be a concern. I'm not saying he should be a guaranteed starter on a good offensive line, but it's not like I wouldn't use this to extrapolate over he's a horrible player, just because I know people are going to rush to that conclusion based off things they heard from this game. Is there really anybody else worth talking about? You know, because at this point we're getting into players who are just not even going to play in the regular season, really. I would say no. Nick Mullins did look decent against this level of competition as well. Again, that's something I think that was really predictable going into this. Nathan Cottrell looked okay for the Jaguars. He's actually played in a regular season game before, too, or a couple. And he's okay. Same with Austin Walter on the other side of the ball. Those guys I actually think are fine as like fifth-string running backs or whatever. But that's kind of all I wanted to talk about. Really, the main things are start Darius Phillips and Trayvon Walker, but not a ton. It's the Hall of Fame game. I'm going to reset all this expectations anyway once we get into actual football. Just wanted to talk about it real quick.